Welcome to another deep dive, and this one is going to be pretty fascinating. You guys have sent over a ton of research, and I've got to admit, I got pretty sucked in myself. We're talking synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yeah, so for anyone just tuning in, that's the whole blending of the senses thing.
Exactly.
You know, like hearing a sound and seeing a color, which, now that I think about it, is something most people probably haven't even considered as, like, a possibility.
Right. And that's what we're here to explore.
Okay, so we've got all these articles,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to try to pull out the most useful, interesting stuff for you.
We'll look at the different types of synesthesia, because it's not just seeing sounds, there are all kinds.
Right.
We'll dig into what might actually cause it in the brain, and this is cool, we might even uncover some advantages to having synesthesia.
Okay, so first things first. I know some of our listeners are probably already familiar with the basics, but let's just quickly recap for anyone who's new to this.
Sure.
What's like the most common example of synesthesia that people have heard of?
You probably hear about seeing letters or numbers in specific colors, like A is always red, 5 is always blue, that kind of thing.
Right, grapheme-color synesthesia.
Yeah, exactly.
And that one's always blown my mind. Like, I can kind of understand some of the other types, but seeing colors for letters, just, whoa.
It's definitely one of the more common types, but what I find really fascinating is spatial sequence synesthesia.
And what's that?
So for people with this type, things like numbers, dates, even months feel like they have an actual location in space. Like 1980 might feel farther away than 1990.
Wait, so they literally see like a timeline in their mind?
Yeah, some describe it that way, or like a clock face around them with the months or years.
That's incredible.
And the coolest part,
Let's hear it.
there's research suggesting people with this type often have amazing memories. It's like having a built-in calendar in their head.
Really? So it's not just a cool visual thing, it actually helps them remember things.
There's a study, pretty fascinating, where they found individuals with spatial sequence synesthesia were way better at recalling lists and events
Wow.
compared to those without it. Like their spatial associations act as anchors for their memory.
Huh. So it's kind of like those memory palaces people use, but it's just naturally how their minds work.
Exactly.
That's a serious advantage, especially for our learner listeners out there.
Mm.
Okay, so if this type of synesthesia can boost your memory, I gotta ask, how common is this?
You know, for a long time, synesthesia was thought to be super rare.
Right.
But newer research is changing that. Some estimates suggest it might be as common as 4% of the population.
Whoa, 4%. So, like, chances are you probably know someone with synesthesia.
Probably.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But if it's that common, why are we only hearing about it now? Was it just misdiagnosed or something?
That could be part of it.
Okay.
But you also have to remember, synesthesia is a very subjective experience. A lot of people might not even realize what they're experiencing is unusual.
So they just think everyone tastes words or whatever.
They might, yeah. Until they happen to mention it to someone.
Wow.
And then realize, oh, wait, you don't see colors when you hear music.
Uh-huh. That would be a weird conversation.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating phenomenon, possibly more common than we thought. But the big question is, what's going on in their brains that's different? What causes this sensory mixing?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
We don't know the exact cause of synesthesia just yet.
But I bet there's some cool theories.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
Okay, lay some on me. What are the leading contenders?
One theory that's gaining traction is called disinhibited feedback.
Disinhibited feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's that all about?
Basically, it suggests that signals between different parts of the brain, which are usually tightly controlled,
Right.
they might be a bit looser in people with synesthesia.
So it's like there are walls between sensory areas in the brain. But for synesthetes, those walls have extra doors or windows.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
So instead of taking the scenic route, the signals just take a shortcut straight to the color department or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Makes sense. But is there any actual physical evidence for this extra wiring in the brain?
Actually, there is. Scientists have been using brain imaging.
Like fMRIs and stuff?
Yeah, fMRIs.
Okay.
To look at the brains of synesthetes compared to non-synesthetes.
What are they saying?
Well, what they found is that synesthetes have increased activity and connectivity
Okay.
between certain brain regions. For example, in grapheme-color synesthesia, there's more going on in the areas that process visuals.
So like colors and shapes?
Right.
And at the same time, the areas for recognizing letters and numbers.
Exactly.
So their brains are actually physically different.
It seems that way.
It's not just in their heads.
It's literally wired differently.
That's incredible. Really shows you how diverse our brains can be. Well, but okay, if this is something you're basically born with, is there any way to like develop synesthesia? Like, can
Yeah.
you train your brain to have these experiences?
Yeah. That's a good question. And honestly, one researchers are still trying to figure out. So while we haven't quite figured out how to, like, give someone synesthesia,
Right.
there are some studies looking at whether you can make existing synesthesia stronger
Oh, interesting.
or even create maybe temporary synesthesia-like perceptions.
Okay, hold on. So you're saying there might be a way to, like, hack our senses.
Uh-huh. Well, maybe not hack, exactly.
It's like, come on, sign me up. How would that even work? Are we talking, like, brain implants or something?
Nothing quite that sci-fi yet.
Okay.
But some studies have shown that if you already have synesthesia, training and practice can actually make those associations stronger, more vivid, easier to access, that kind of thing.
So, like, if I see the letter A as red, I can practice and make it, like, super red.
Potentially, yeah. Think of it like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about people who don't have synesthesia at all? Is there any hope for us experiencing this sensory blending?
Well, there's some interesting research using a technique called transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Say that again.
Transcranial magnetic stimulation?
Okay, is that TMS?
Yeah, TMS.
That's the one where they hold a magnet over your head and your fingers twitch.
Right. That's the one. It's a non-invasive way to basically temporarily alter brain activity.
Okay.
And in one study, they used TMS to target specific brain areas in non-synesthetes, the areas involved in processing visuals and sounds.
And what happened?
Some of the participants actually reported having like temporary synesthesia-like perceptions, seeing colors when they heard sounds, that kind of thing.
Whoa, wait. So they basically created synesthesia in people who didn't have it.
The effects were temporary,
Right.
but does suggest that the potential might be there in all of us, just kind of dormant.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about the cool side of synesthesia, the memory benefits, the possible creativity link. But are there any downsides? Like, does it ever get to be too much?
You know, it's important to remember that everyone's experience is different.
Right, of course.
What's helpful for one person could be a challenge for someone else.
Makes sense.
And some synesthetes have said they can feel overwhelmed, especially in busy or chaotic environments.
Yeah, I can imagine. If you're always seeing sounds and tasting colors, it could get pretty intense.
Exactly. And for some, the fact that it's involuntary can be tough. You can't just turn it off.
It's like having a superpower you can't control.
Kinda, yeah.
And then there's the social aspect. Even though people are more aware of synesthesia now, there's still a lot of misunderstanding out there.
That's true.
It must be hard to explain that to people who don't experience it.
Some synesthetes feel like they have to hide it, worried about being judged.
Yeah, that's a shame. To have this incredible ability and feel like you can't share it.
It's getting better, though. More people are talking about it. There's more research.
More understanding,
Yeah.
which is great.
It's a good reminder that everyone experiences the world differently.
Exactly. Okay, so earlier you mentioned that some people might not even know they have synesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
How would someone even figure that out? Are there, like, signs to look for?
Sometimes it's as simple as talking to other people and realizing, wait, you don't experience it like that?
So I say, like, 7 is green.
Mm.
And everyone looks at me funny, but someone's like, yeah, totally green. That's a clue.
Haha, yeah, maybe. Or maybe you've always hated a certain sound because it feels like rough or prickly.
Interesting.
It's those little things, those quirky sensory experiences that other people don't seem to share.
Okay, but what if you want, like, a real answer? Is there a test or something?
There are online quizzes and self-assessments,
Okay.
but those aren't diagnostic. The best way is to talk to a professional, like a neuropsychologist.
So if you're really curious, talk to an expert.
Exactly.
They can figure out if you actually have synesthesia and what type it is.
Mm.
We were talking before about all the research being done on synesthesia, and I started thinking about the ethics of it all. Studying something so personal, how people experience the world.
You're right. That's a huge consideration in any research, but especially with something like synesthesia.
So what are some of the ethical challenges researchers have to think about?
Well, first and foremost, making sure participants understand what they're getting into.
Okay, informed consent, the usual.
More than that, really. It's making sure they grasp what it means to share these experiences, which can be very personal.
Like, it's not just data points, it's someone's way of seeing the world.
Exactly. And protecting their privacy is crucial.
Of course.
Keeping their identity confidential, treating their experiences with respect.
No putting someone's unique sensory world on blast without their permission.
Right. And the research should benefit both the scientific community and the synesthesia community itself.
Not just about publishing papers, but actually helping people.
Absolutely.
And I imagine involving synesthetes in the research process is important too.
Huge. Not just as participants, but as collaborators, advisors.
Who better to guide the research than the people who actually experience it?
Exactly.
And speaking of the synesthesia community, we've talked about these online communities.
Yeah, they've been incredible.
I can imagine for so long, synesthetes probably felt pretty isolated.
Absolutely. They might not have known anyone else like them, been afraid to talk about it.
Like having this secret, this way of experiencing the world that no one else understands.
And then the internet comes along and suddenly they can connect with others, share their stories, realize they're not alone.
That's powerful.
It is.
It's like not only do they find support, but they also help raise awareness about synesthesia in general.
Exactly. More people are learning about it. More research is happening.
More understanding.
Yeah, it's really been amazing to see.
One of the things that always gets me about synesthesia is its potential for creativity and innovation.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned artists and musicians who have synesthesia, but I'm curious about the tech side of things. Are there any cool ways synesthesia is being used in technology?
Oh, definitely. It's a rapidly growing field.
Like what?
Well, one area is sensory substitution devices
Okay.
for people with sensory impairments.
So if someone's blind.
Yeah, there are devices that convert visual information into sound.
Whoa, so they can hear what's around them.
Exactly. Or for people with hearing impairments, there are devices that convert sound into touch.
So instead of hearing music, they might feel the vibrations.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And these devices aren't just about providing basic sensory information.
It's about the experience.
Right, enhancing it, even creating new forms of sensory expression.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. So synesthesia is kind of blurring the lines between our senses.
In a way, yeah. It's making our experience of the world more interconnected.
I like that. And how about art? How is synesthesia influencing art?
Well, some artists are creating what they call multisensory artworks.
So you're not just seeing a painting, but also hearing music that goes with it.
Exactly. Or maybe feeling textures that relate to the artwork.
Wow, that would be incredible.
It's about creating a more immersive experience.
Right.
But also challenging how we perceive things, making us think about the world in new ways.
And it sounds like synesthesia is opening up a whole new world of possibilities for art.
Absolutely, breaking down those traditional barriers between different art forms.
And creating this more holistic, multisensory experience.
It's really exciting to see what artists are doing with it.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning, right?
Oh yeah, there's so much more to come.
As we learn more about synesthesia and tech keeps advancing,
Who knows what we'll be able to do?
it's mind-blowing to think about.
It is.
It really makes you question, what is reality?
Yeah, a little bit.
If our senses can blend and interact in all these ways.
It really highlights how amazing and complex the human brain is.
And how much we still don't know about it.
Exactly.
Man, we've covered a lot of ground here. This whole deep dive into synesthesia has been, pretty mind-blowing, to be honest.
I know, right? It's one of those topics that just keeps getting more and more fascinating the deeper you go.
And I think for our listener, someone who's already into learning and exploring new ideas, synesthesia offers some really cool insights.
Definitely. We've talked about the memory benefits, the potential connection to creativity.
And even the idea that, maybe we all have some subtle form of synesthesia going on that we're not even aware of.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If those with more pronounced synesthesia can tap into this hidden sensory layer, what could the rest of us unlock?
Right. What if there are ways to enhance our own sensory perception, to make those connections between sound and color or taste and texture stronger?
Think about the possibilities for learning. Imagine a multi-sensory approach to studying, where information isn't just words on a page, but a whole experience.
Yeah, like turning textbooks into these immersive, almost VR-like worlds built from your own senses.
Exactly. And it's not just about memorizing facts.
It's about understanding them on a deeper level.
Feeling the rhythm of history, tasting the nuances of philosophy, seeing the patterns of math unfold.
Wow. Yeah. It's like opening up a whole new dimension of understanding, going beyond the purely intellectual.
And who knows, maybe by exploring our own senses more, by paying attention to those little cross-modal connections we usually ignore, we can all tap into a bit of that synesthetic magic.
So to our listener out there, here's a little challenge for you. Over the next few days, really pay attention to your senses. Notice those moments where you might feel a hint of color in a sound, or a taste in a word.
See what you discover. You might be surprised.
And even if you don't suddenly start seeing the alphabet in full-blown Technicolor,
Uh-huh.
you might just gain a deeper appreciation for how amazing your own senses are.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure diving deep into this with you. I've learned a ton.
Me too.
And to our listener, we hope you've come away with a renewed sense of wonder, some new questions to explore.
And a reminder that the world is full of fascinating mysteries, just waiting to be uncovered.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep those senses sharp.
You never know what incredible discoveries are just around the corner.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into synesthesia. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep those brains buzzing